All right, the bald men are back. It is episode 18. So we're actually 2 weeks closer to being pain-free at 100. And that's largely my fault. I had to take a little hiatus last week. University was killing me. We've talked about this before. I still can't wait for it to be over. But last week was a nightmare. So my apologies to our loyal listeners. We're back with a bang. What's up, Dr. Mike?
Nothing. Just hanging out, trying to change the world one bum joint at a time, and doing a pretty damn good job of it, if I say so myself.
That's what it's all about. What do we got today?
So it's a concept that I think a lot of people are familiar with from a financial standpoint, and that's, like investing into yourself. And, your future self is largely a function of the decisions that you make now. So it's our job as healthcare providers, as two people interested in having you live to 100 in the healthiest way possible, to bestow upon you a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of what needs to be done in order for your present self to look out for your future health. And a lot of that has to do with joints. A lot of that doesn't have to do with joints. But, again, it's every decision you make now has a fundamental impact on your future, right? It's basic cause and effect. And so if you can zoom out and understand what those decisions will do to you moving forward, then you can better inform yourself to make a quality decision. So I pretty much just summed it up, right? Nothing crazy right there, but you have to have that mindset of every decision that I make for my health right now, I'm putting principal into an investment account, right? And if you're looking to retire eventually, right, that principal has to be high enough such that the payoff, the interest, can support you. So every decision that you make now is one that, you're placing that principal in the investment account. And ultimately the goal is for individuals to be able to live to 100 and, basically live off the investments of the principal of that fund.
Yeah, this could be a huge topic, really. So we're going to try and condense it down today. But, for me, I think the biggest, hardest reality of this idea really hit me when we went into an aged care facility earlier this year as part of the internship that we're doing this year. And it was a harsh reality because you go in there, and for a lot of these people, the reason that they're there is because they need a level of care that they can't get in their own homes anymore. But mentally in their mind, they were so sharp. Everything was still there. They're very, very good upstairs, but their bodies were failing them. And for most of them, it was knee joints. So just walking was very hard. Getting up from a chair was almost impossible for a lot of them. Just to be able to move around a room was incredibly painful. And that was there every day. And it was quite confronting, but it was quite sad, I think, that you could see someone that was so sharp upstairs and so on point with the way that they could communicate with someone, and the health of their mental state was excellent, but their body was just cactus. I sort of left there thinking just how frustrating would that be? It'd be terrible. So for me, that was a little bit of motivation to think about the decisions that we make now, because they all do have ramifications down the track. And, if we want to try and be pain-free at 100, man, we've got to make some good decisions.
Yeah. It's alarming when you see that. And a lot of times we're conditioned to think, oh, that's just part of getting old. And there is an undeniable consequence of logging more time on this earth than other people, right? We're living longer than we ever have in the history of the human race. But you have to make decisions now with that longevity in mind, because I've seen 80-year-old people that go to the gym, right, that are healthy, that they exist in 1 out of 10 pain when they sit down too long to fucking watch Jeopardy. So we're conditioned to think, oh, you're older, you're just not going to be able to bend over and pick up that Amazon package that was dropped off by a drone that Jeff Bezos piloted in his bathroom or some shit like that. But that is not how it has to be, right? We're being raised by, you know, generations that are the first generations to make it this long, right? It's like, you know, your grandparents and your parents are living longer than your great grandparents and your great great grandparents. So there's not really a positive example in basically your genetic lineage of what it takes to live well, what it takes to live freely. Because as you said, the thing that puts people into nursing homes most times is an inability to take care of themselves. And it's not because they lack mental clarity or mental acuity. It's because they lack the ability to physically take care of themselves, right? In chiropractic school, they talked about, you know, the number one thing that puts people in nursing homes is an inability to wipe their ass after they take shit. So it's like you lose some of that flexibility and it doesn't come back. And, you know, we all love to think that our kids at that age are going to be taking care of us, but, you know, crosses a line when you got to wipe dad's butt and wipe mom's butt and all that other stuff. And sorry to get a little too graphic for maybe some viewers, but it's the real deal. You know, bad knees put you in nursing homes because you can't climb the stairs of your own house. Bad knees remove you from the house that you grew up with, right? The house that your grandpa built with his bare hands has to be sold because you can't get up and down the stairs to wash clothes, things like that. So the large elephant in the room is we're living longer with an inability to live longer, right? Truly live longer, because we are making decisions now that impact our ability to live with a certain degree of freedom in the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's how many different ways can we take this in terms of things that we can do now to make that better? I mean, there's so many different aspects, but I suppose if we stay within the musculoskeletal realm, we're really talking about maintaining healthy, pain-free ranges of motion now, and especially the ranges of motion that you may not necessarily be always aware of, right? So, you know, there are some things that you need someone to check for you. So, for instance, the health of your low back. You may not have back pain. You may be able to bend forward relatively well, but it still may not move 100% or close to 100%. And let's say it's a 70%, 60%. You can still get away with that for quite a while. But that is going to have a consequence down the road. So it's important to kind of know what you've got. It's important to know where you're at a point in time, because this is the information that you need. If you're carrying around 60% function for a very long time without really knowing it, there's a consequence for that. And it's not necessarily something that's going to show up next week, next month, may not be for many, many years. But I think the point is we don't want to have to look back and go, damn, I wish I got that checked earlier.
Yeah, there's a point of no return when it comes to the health of your joints. There's no blunter way to put it. You can exist with a 60% back for quite a long period of time, but all of a sudden 60 turns into 50, 50 turns into 40, and all of a sudden 40 locks in, right? There comes a point in time where 40% back can no longer exceed 40%, and you're stuck with a failing back. And no, it's not part of getting older, right? It's only a part of getting older if there's dysfunction in there that you don't take care of. period. And then you're getting to the point where you're managing pain, you're doing the steroid shots, you got gel shots in your knee, you got this and that, you got more doctor's appointments than you care to have. And there's nothing that you can do. You can't go to an auto body shop and have your muffler replaced. You can get knee replacement, sure. And a lot of people experience a lot of success with that, but they're also cutting into you, sawing off half of your leg and sticking you with the bionic one. And even those don't promote longevity, right? Because once you replace one knee, what happens to the other? It goes down. You can't say you're buying a house, the guts are good, but it just needs a little cosmetic touch up. You can do that in your youth, but there comes a point where you've just got to knock the house down and you can't start over. And it's sad. It's sad to see older individuals do that, and it's sad to see older individuals say, well, I'm 65, I can't do this anymore. Well, I'm 70 and I can't do this anymore. And it's, for me, a personal story that hits home is, and again, not like I could do anything about this at the time, but, my nanny, my beautiful grandma back home in Chicago, loves to make pizza and make her own tomato sauce and do gardening and do this and that and that and this, classic stereotypical Sicilian woman. And her back is so stenotic that she's got burning and tingling in her feet, and she can't do it anymore. And there's nothing that can be done. And, I'm not here to guilt my nanny or anything like that. She's not listening. She's watching Italian access TV right now and loving every minute of it. But there will come a point where if it's not addressed, if the decisions that you don't make right now align with a life of longevity, that you will no longer be able to do what you need to do on a day-to-day basis, or what you want to do on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, how bad does, that's what you live for. You won't be able to live for what you want to live for. And then you have to ask yourself the question, am I really living? Are you alive, or is your heart and your brain still functioning and nothing else? You're in a joint health coma.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it already. We're generally living longer, but we're doing things, life events are happening at older ages. So, for me, I'm going to be, pushing 40 in a couple of years. And I want to have a family, that's on the roadmap. That's going to happen. But the reality is that that's not probably going to happen until I am 40 at least. So, I'm going to have young children into my 40s, and probably I'll be 50 when they're still young and they're running around. You don't want to be that old guy that can't interact with his family and can't do activities and keep up with them and do all the tasks that you really want to be able to do. You don't want to be left out of that because your body's cactus. That'd be terrible. But that's not unusual now for how our society is. We're all doing those things later in life. When my parents, with me and my brother, my folks were in their early 20s, right? And that was normal then, but over that period of time, that's kind of shifted. And so most of us now are doing this a lot later. And so we're into our 50s and into our 60s, and we've still got, relatively young people at home. So, that's definitely something that I think about. We have to be active, have to be able to do that, because I think it's just unacceptable not to be able to.
Yeah, and it starts in between your ears, right? It's one of those things where it's so easy to just get lazy and get complacent and focus on other things in your life, and focus on the new car and focus on your profession. And those are all great things. Like, believe me, I want to roll around in a fucking Mercedes Benz and have that thing glistening so hard off the sun that you got to put sunglasses on when I drive by, just as much as the next guy or gal or whomever. But if I were faced with a decision to spend $3,000 more on a vehicle or spend $3,000 on my health, that's not even a question, right? That's going to my health. And I don't want to frame this in just a spend money type of situation, because there's a lot of things that you can do that aren't expensive that preserve your joint health. If I'm faced with a decision of whether I want to bust my nut and do Fran, right? I'm weighing the pros and the cons of that. Is Fran going to fray my labrum? And when little Mike Jr. is running around and I'm trying to fucking toss him as high as I can in the air to make him laugh, right? I'm getting a little bit fuzzy about my future life right now and my fucking imaginary kid, but my fiance's in the other room.
You went straight to Mike Jr. too. I love it.
Right to Mike Jr. That's just the kind of guy I am. When that bun goes in the oven, and you best believe it's going to go in the oven, right? That's what I'm thinking about, because when we are 100 and we are on our deathbed and we're breathing our final breaths, and I don't want to get morbid, but it's, I think it's fundamentally important to think about death all the time. Am I going to be sitting there thinking, man, I'm really, really happy that I hit that 3-minute and 48-second Fran in 2020? Or am I going to be thinking about the time when I was tossing my kids up in the air, or tossing my grandkids up in the air, right? Everybody wants to be the Jack Grandpa. But that's the thing that I'm going to be looking back at when I'm dying. And I think about it every day, and I set my life up to be in a position to enjoy those moments every day. And as an individual, you're selling yourself short if you're not. And there are things that you have to do as a human being that you're not necessarily going to look back fondly on when you're older. But yeah, I mean, that's about as deep and as heavy and as important as it gets.
Yeah, I got a long list of those things that I'm going to have to look back on that I won't look back on too fondly. But yeah, man, I suppose that's it's up to us if we want to learn from that, or if we want to just keep riding that bus, right?
Yeah, and I see this in the nutrition realm all the time too. It's just a different set of rules, and it's like somebody's telling me that it means everything to them to have a 6-pack. Cool, right? I've had a 6-pack before. It's fucking awesome to take your shirt off at the beach and to look at yourself in other people's mirrored sunglasses and be like, yeah, I'm that jack dude, right? It's amazing to take your shirt off and see that little glisten in your wife or fiance's eyes, where it's like, it's about to go down. But people don't realize that comes at a cost for health too. And it's like, are you willing to go to your niece or your nephew's first communion and sit there with a fucking chicken salad, right? Are you going to remember the abs when you're dying, or are you going to remember those family events when you're dying? So it's all balance. And on the flip side of that same coin is, like, if you're 400 pounds and you're overindulging on it at every family function and really, really enjoying yourself, you're not going to set yourself up for sustained health either. So you have to think about what's important for you and what your ideal life looks like in the future, and then reverse engineer it back, right? Like, what's your perfect day? And there's a really great book written by Craig Ballantyne. It's called The Perfect Day Formula. And, Chris and I are familiar with Craig, not on a first name basis, Mr. Ballantyne, excuse me. And it's like, you have to have that idea of, like, what's the perfect day in your head, where after that you could die a happy man, right? Like, what's your holy grail day, and reverse that back, and then set your life up to have that day. Like, for me, it's waking up and going and treating a bunch of awesome patients that love me and adore me and really, really want to get better. And it's coming back, and it's working out with Brianna and having a garage gym and seeing my kids play t-ball in the backyard and all this other stuff, and cooking a really great healthy meal. And it's like, what do I need to do to live my life now in order to have that? Well, in 30 years, if I want to be working out in my garage gym, right? First of all, I've got to be healthy enough to have that garage gym. I have to be financially savvy enough to have that yard, to be able to have, 2.5 kids and a picket fence with a white picket fence and a dog, right? I've got to have a great relationship with Brianna that sustains over the course of, long period of time, where we like each other enough to work out together. And that's what I do with my decision making, because I know, right, to harp back on the morbid deathbed thing, that's what I'm going to be thinking about as I'm passing, right? As I'm going from this world to the next, or whatever the hell you believe, that's what I'm thinking of. So create that ideal day. So you want to relive that thing, right? You'd spend billions of dollars to relive that memory just once, right? That's another way to look at it. And then how do you reverse engineer that?
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up. I hadn't thought about the everyday, the formula stuff for a while, but yeah, it is a good book. Thank you, Mr. Valentine. But some of those really high value points that come out of creating that perfect day, it's the things that we would talk about here in terms of your future self, right? So it's about getting enough sleep, consistent sleep. It's about taking care of your nutrition, in a way that supports longevity. It's about doing things that are productive and meaningful for your professional life. It's about, lowering your stress and just good human hygiene, for life. And setting that up. And yeah, what a great framework for your future self. So it's a good point.
It's extreme. It's very extreme, to think about what you're going to think about at that moment in your life. But you have to dive into those extremes in order to give yourself clarity, right? It's you can think of it as sitting under the tree in your Buddha. You can think of it as the 40 days in the desert. If you're a Jesus Christ fan, it's taking yourself to those extremes, and even if it's just in your head, in order to develop some clarity. So it's I saw something on Twitter one time that changed my life, and it was, you've got $1 million in your pocket and you're dying, and you can spend that money in a way that you can actually go back in time and relive memories. What memory are you reliving? And I was like, holy like hits you right here. And I may not seem like an emotional guy. I may seem like an overly emotional guy, who knows? But that changed my life, just to think about it and understand that there is a sense of urgency. And there should be a sense of urgency in everything that you do. And you've got to get to those points where, you spend a lot of money to jump in a time machine or a hot tub or the DeLorean and go back and relive them.
So there you go, folks. A few practical tips to think about. We're not getting into the weeds so much today about what to exactly do and what not to do. This is more of a mindset thing. It's really about not having regrets later on. That's the best way to put it, I think. So we might just leave it there.
I think it's a great place to end.
All right, man. Well, we're wrapping up episode 18. So we're pushing towards that magic 20. We're almost there. And we'll be back next week.